get into the episode. I know it's short, but you know what? Deal with it, mother trucker. Alright, so he's going to tell us a ghost story. I know it's not Halloween, but it's a really cool story, and you need to hear it. So go ahead.
Back in the 1970s, when I purchased a house, we bought a home that was a row home in an area that was called Charlesmont in Baltimore County. It's the whole area of row homes, attached homes, and it was a good starter home. That's what we thought.
Mm-hmm.
The first week that we moved in, everything was great. It seemed like everything was nice. We were painting it and getting things started. But when I went to bed after maybe the second week, I went to bed. I put my shoes on the floor, and I woke up in the morning, and my shoes weren't where I put them. And I thought, what happened? I looked around. I couldn't find them. I went downstairs, couldn't find them. And it was a 3-level, like a typical row home or townhouse, they call them today. And finally, like later that day, I went down in the basement, which had a lock on the door. I unlocked the door, went down the basement. There were my shoes thrown across the floor. And I thought, now, how the heck did that happen? So, of course, I asked my wife, I said, why would you throw my shoes down on the floor like that? And she said, I didn't do it. I don't know anything about it. Well, that happened one time, and it was no big deal. And then, like another week or two later, as you say, somewhat of an order. When we moved into the house, we had just had our daughter, Stacy, had been born, and she was only about a month old from when so she was only about a month old, and she was a crying baby. She had what we thought was colic, which causes them to have gas and causes them to cry. So we moved into the house with that, and the neighbor told us that the lady who moved in, because it was a row home, they could hear Stacy crying through the walls. And she told us that the people who lived there, the woman who lived there before us had a baby, and that baby cried all the time. And they were only in there for a year, and then they sold the house to us. And I thought, well, Stacy will stop crying sooner or later. Well, the whole time we lived there, the whole year, she never stopped crying. She cried a lot. She would only sleep like 2 or 3 hours a day and cried a lot. So there was something that was really bothering her. And then about 3 weeks later, after we moved in, my mother asked if we could take her dog. They needed to give a dog up, and I said, sure, we'll take a dog in. Even though we had a baby that was crying a lot, it was a little small dog, and his name was Gus. Well, immediately, and I knew the dog. The dog was actually like my dog before I got married, and we knew each other really well. But when the dog came into the house, our row house, he started shaking, and he would just stand there, and his legs were shaking, his body was shaking. And when I opened up the front door to go out and did something, he darted out the front door, and he was crying, and I'd go get him and bring him back in. Then when I opened up the back door, he would not only go right out the back door to get out of the house, he would run and jump a fence, he was a little dog. He actually climbed the fence to get out, and I'd have to chase him down the alley. And I thought, wow, this is really weird. I got a baby that's crying and a dog that's not happy. A little after that, we were laying in bed. My wife and I were laying in bed, third level up on the top floor, and we heard what sounded like a dog in the neighbor's house. And there was like a dog that was crying, and you could hear it going, and then you hear a chain rattle. And then it would do it again and again, and I fall asleep listening to it. And I thought, well, they must have put their dog in a bedroom upstairs next to our room, divided by the wall, and they just leave it there, and it cried all night until morning. When the morning came, we couldn't hear it. So those things were adding up early on, and then things began to get worse. So I had a baby that's crying, a dog that did not want to be in the house. Actually, with the dog, after about 2 months, I bought a wire cage and put him in the cage so that it would hopefully would relax. And then when we went away one time, we came back and he chewed the wires off of the cage and kept it closed. And he was out in the house, and when we opened up the door to come in, he ran out the door, jumped the fence, and took off running. Now, another month or two goes by, and I took my shoes and put them on my bed like I normally do, took my money, my wallet, put it on the chest of drawers, went to bed, woke up in the morning, no shoes, no wallet. I thought, what the heck happened here? I knew I put it there. So after looking around a little bit, I went down to the basement, and there were my shoes, as if somebody had thrown them on the floor, and my wallet, the money, the paper money and pictures were laying on the floor. So I picked it up, and of course then there was only one person to accuse, and that was my wife, because we locked our doors at night. The basement door is locked, the back door is locked, the other door is locked. And she kept saying, no, I'm sleeping through the night, and I didn't do it. Now, finally, one day, and this was after we'd been there maybe 6, 7 months, or maybe a little longer, my wife was going to a baby shower, and I was in the house alone, so I told her I had to do the laundry. So I picked up the laundry, I went downstairs, put it in the washing machine, started the washing machine, the water going in the washing machine. I went upstairs into the living room area, sat down, turned the television on, and I hear this bing sound, which is the sound of a dryer going off. That's usually when the dryer ends. And I thought, I didn't put anything in the dryer. And I, a little leery for a minute, so I got up and I walked downstairs, and the clothes that I had put in the washing machine were dried and folded and sitting on top of the dryer. I lifted up the lid of the washing machine, and there's nothing in there. I opened up the washing machine door, and there's nothing in there. Now I'm really uptight. I'm like, what is going on? The hairs on my arms were raising up on me like, what, is there a ghost in here, or what is happening? So for the rest of that day, I was on my hands and knees, tapping the wall and checking the door. I had already added different locks on the door, and I could not find anything that would do this. In the meantime, my daughter's crying all the time. My dog wants to escape all the time. As time goes by, we lucked out. My parents said they're selling their house because they wanted to buy another home and move up, and I said, we'll buy your house. So we did. We sold our house, moved out, and we were glad. It was like, whew, whatever was in that house, it was doing things like that, messing with our clothes, messing with our shoes, messing with our laundry. We were moved out, and we moved into our other home, which is only about a mile away from there. Well, the people who bought my house, the woman had just had a baby, and her baby was only about a month old. And well, it was like, okay, we're just glad to get rid of that house. We then went to a grocery store one time, and we bumped into the neighbors who lived right next door to us. The neighbor who we thought had a dog, a puppy, up in a room upstairs. Well, they said hi, and we were talking, and the neighbor said, you know what's really funny is that the woman before you lived in the house for 1 year, and her baby cried the whole time. And when she sold the house, we thought, oh, great, we don't have to hear a baby crying all the time. And she said, and then you bought the house, and your baby cried the whole time. Then you sold your house to the woman who's there now, and she said it's been like 6 months, 6 months or so, and her baby cries all the time, all day, all night. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, do you have a puppy dog that you keep upstairs? And they said, no, why? I said, because we kept hearing a whining puppy and a chain rattling, and then we had things that were going on in our house. And the neighbor said, do you mean like things in your room would disappear and wind up in another room? And I said, yes. She said, yeah, the lady who's living there now saying that's what's happening to her, that things are happening in their house. And I said, oh, wow. Well, I'm glad we're out. I'm just glad we're out. We talked a little bit about it. About I don't know, maybe another 4 months after that, we got a phone call from the real estate agent who sold the lady the house, our house to this lady. And she said to me, I got a question to ask you. And she said, I know it's embarrassing. She said, I told them I didn't want to do it, but they insisted that I do this. She said, but the house that you sold them, she said, did you experience any odd things going on? And I said, oh, definitely. I said, you mean like shoes disappearing, money being thrown on the basement floor? I said, laundry being done without never being washed or whatever. And there was silence on the other side of the phone. And I said, are you still there? And she said, oh my gosh, that's just what they said is happening. And she said, well, they wanted me to call you, and if you were experiencing the same thing, they're going to have the house, they're going to have a priest come and exorcise the house. They're scared to death, they're not sure if they want to live there anymore. And they want to know, would you want to be involved in the exorcism? You and your wife to come over. And I said, absolutely not. We never want to go in that house again. I worried that whatever was in that house was going to come into my new house. I said, because the only thing I can think of is it's ghosts, and I'm not even a big believer in ghosts. And she said, that's what they're saying. It must be ghosts in the house. I said, well, I can't argue with them. Then later, doing a little looking, after we moved out, did a little investigation, we found out that the house that we lived in was on a battlefield that was called the Battle of Charlemont. And it was the War of 1812. And there, historical-wise, General Stricker, and 2 of our American soldiers were killed right there where our house was built. So my assumption is that their ghosts were
General Stricker's folding your clothes.
That's right. I don't know what that was about. And then there's the other thing, which, by the way, we didn't realize then the movie came out about that time or a little later called Poltergeist, which I never heard of the term before, but if you look it up, it says it's ghosts that like to do little antics, do little crazy things that drive you crazy. And my wife said, and I said, that's it. That's exactly what it is. It was driving us crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that's the story of my haunted house. And I'd have to say, after we got the phone call from the real estate agent, and she explaining what happened, so we go a little bit further. We bump into our old neighbors again later on. And we told her, we said, our real estate agent called, she's experiencing these things. And she said, I know. She goes, it was worse than what I thought. And she said, so I called the lady who lived there before you, who had the baby that cried. And she said, that's why she got out within a year. She thought the house was haunted. It was her baby was crying, things were moving around, and things were always like little pranks were being pulled, and she couldn't figure out what was happening. So, ironically, or somehow it was made, 3 women who had just given birth to a baby moved into the house one after another, and all 3 of us experienced basically the same things. I never did go back. I didn't want to know whatever happened after that, because I did not want to. After reading a bit about poltergeist and learning about it, it's like you could bring them to your new home if you're not careful. So we just stayed clear of it. It was pretty scary and trying times, because like I said, so by the way, go back to my dog. After a couple of months, my dog was always shaking, and he was rattling the cage. And as soon as he would get out of the cage, he was standing there and his legs were shaking, and he was always nervous, which was not the way he was when my parents gave him to me. So finally, I asked my parents, and I said, I can't keep the dog. The dog's not happy. So she said a neighbor of hers said she would take it. And from that moment on, when that dog left the house, that dog went back to being relaxed and enjoying itself. The neighbor had it for years after that, with no problems. So I guess the dog picked up too. There was something in that house that didn't want to be around.
Yeah, dogs always see ghosts first, apparently.
Yeah, but they have their sense of awareness is much greater than ours. Their smell, their hearing, and their sight is much more heightened. So yes, I didn't know that.
They don't see colors that well, but that might help them see shadows more.
The apparitions, yes.
The apparitions.
Yep. So that's a story of a really trying time in my life, and the only thing I can attribute it to is there were poltergeists in my house. And it lasted through at least 3 families, 3 years, back to back, same things happening to us. And we never talked to each other. After we moved out, we never talked to that lady. Never talked to the lady after we sold. I should add this to it too. When we went to look at the house for the first time before we bought it, the lady was home with a baby, and she was holding the baby, and the baby was crying. Well, we just thought it was an infant, only a month old, but it was like really crying, and she was having a hard time talking to us because the baby was crying. So whatever was in there was frightening infants and babies and our dog. And it turned out that there was no dog in the house next to us, and this chain there. And I mean, it sounded just like a chain. Like somebody was rubbing a chain on the floor or on the wall. And they said they never heard it. They never heard that sound. That'll be it? You want to go in?
Yep.
All right.
Back from the gym. I feel like I could eat a whole Big Mac.
Somehow I think you will.
Yep.
So we'll head down to the McDonald's. Get a Big Mac. It's getting, I thought it was supposed to get sunny and warmer. It's getting more cloudy here. The weathermen aren't always right.
So, World War III is about to happen.
Well,
so Syria's doing some weird stuff over their country, has nothing to do with us. But Donald Trump says, whatever, we're going to bomb them because that's not right. They're like releasing chemicals, and they killed their president and all that stuff, and killed a bunch of babies and children and all that. And then Donald Trump said they were going to bomb Syria, and then Russia said, no, you can't do that. If you bomb Syria, we're going to start a war with you. And then what I think is going to happen is Donald Trump's going to be so confident in his decision that he's going to bomb Syria, and then Russia's going to bomb us, and then England's going to get into the fight too, getting on our side and all that stuff. And then a World War III is going to happen.
I was going to say that's the makings of a world war then. The only thing that would beg to differ is that the president isn't dead. It's the president of the country, Assad, his name is, the president of Syria. Yeah. He's at civil war, and he's killing the people who's on the other side. But it's still his people. So
the president's killing them.
The president is telling his military to go ahead and kill the enemy. But it's his country. They're in his country, and it's his people. It's like when we had our Civil War, the North and the South over slavery.
Yeah.
There were brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles fighting each other for a reason. This war is a religious war. And the president who runs the country says, go ahead and gas the enemy, his enemies. Mm-hmm. And he did. Well, I should back that up and say the big assumption is he did. We haven't had absolute proof yet. Maybe President Trump has proof, and that's his way of dealing with it. But in the meantime, these big guys up there in Washington and in Russia, they're making these decisions that's going to affect our lives.
Yeah.
That's the tough part. Yep. All right, let's go get a Mac.
All right. And so we ate Big Macs, and we both had Big Macs. He had a milkshake. I had a Big Mac. Oh my God, they're so good. I don't know which is better. It's like, which is better, Metallica or Iron Maiden? And this was like, which is better, a Whopper or a Big Mac? It's like you can't decide. A Whopper definitely has a lot more heft to it, kind of like Metallica, and then a Big Mac has like a punch to it, like Iron Maiden. And then, oh my God, Big Macs are so good though. And then I had a 6-piece chicken nugget with it. I love them chicken nuggets. And then I had a small fry with it. Those fries are pretty freaking good, man. I'm gonna go there. Next time I go there, I'm gonna get a quarter pounder. Yep. Okay, that's the end of the episode now. Okay, bye.